if you will, everybody's sentiment that I want to be as aggressive as possible in seeking out, another commissioner, obviously a Republican. I don't want to wait for anybody. Lee, you're a great example of having just followed, the basic procedures. And people have all kinds of things in their life. That's how the previous commissioner departed us. And I just don't want to assume, I'd rather assume that this gentleman is not coming back and let him tell us he's coming back than wait around for a month. Because if somebody's not going to do the necessary due diligence for whatever reason, I don't think this is probably a good scenario for them. And ultimately it falls back on us to compensate for his loss.
I should tell you that he also did not appear at the Board of Selectmen meeting, but they voted him anyways. So I don't know how that works.
We've had people, we've had other people come through the system like this. And I just feel very strongly, Lee, and it's a weird way to start this, but before you were here, we were down to 3. I've seen the entire committee turn over in a year and a half, which is essentially Paul and I have why I'm in this position. And, nothing's easy for any of us to take our volunteer time out, but if people can't regularly commit to this and regularly commit to appearing to be sworn in or to be approved, then they just shouldn't be on the committee. And we don't frankly want them, because we just had a committee member who never showed up at any of the meetings. And we wasted probably 2 to 3 months, thinking that she was going to be in. And we had, thankfully you have replaced her, but we just don't want anybody like that. And it may be nothing to do with them personally, but just their circumstances. I'm going to hit the record button, and then I'm going to, it says,
I started recording it.
Okay. I'm going to step away for a moment. Okay. Please continue. I'll be back as soon as I can.
So I guess the question is the protocol of what happens now. I'm wondering if David needs to send a note to Tom Bremer, or
that's what I'm thinking. I think we probably need to just I'm in the same mindset as David of, if you can't make the first 2 things that you've been committed to, chances are, even if the person does show up, that they're not going to be a long-term reliability.
I'm surprised. I did not know that he wasn't at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Yeah, that's concerning.
That's
very
concerning.
I think maybe David David on behalf of the group should reach out and just presume the position to still be vacant and have the town, to whatever degree they actively recruit or at least passively post the position to see if there's anyone else out there who's interested.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure I go back with David. I connect with him and let him know that. Because I also agree. It's, we have 1 meeting a month, and if we're going to commit to it, we need to be present. So, okay. So officer reports. We'll float the chairman's opening remarks, and I don't know what he wanted to say about Paxton. Vice chairman, that's me. I don't have a report, so to speak, because anything I want to talk about comes down to new business. Secretary's report. Now, without David present, I don't think we can vote on the meeting's last minutes, because it was
Lee doesn't give us a quorum. I think
but I don't think I can vote on a meeting that
Lee can't vote on the minutes because he wasn't at that.
All right, we'll hold off on. So nothing to follow for me. We can follow up on the meeting minutes once David's available again.
Okay.
Oh, there he is. I'm making a motion to approve the minutes of our previous meeting dated June 19th, 2023.
I second it.
Great. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. David, do you want to give chairman's opening remarks and talk about Paxton?
Yes. Can you guys hear me? I always have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. I mean, the opening remarks were really, we've already, covered a major thing, which is welcoming Lee and truly grateful for your presence here. We obviously know this is all volunteer service, and like I said, all we're looking to do is, try and make an impact and provide something above and beyond, necessarily what's been done in the past. Everybody, obviously, this is a momentous time because in addition to you joining, Luke Altieri has just taken over Jerry Spino's role as the full-time production manager. And it was an interesting process, if only because Luke was the first one to prominently raise his hand. And we knew right off the bat that he was the right person, given his qualifications, his experience working in the Fairfield Public Schools. So he's obviously learning the job, and that's a good segue because the summertime, as you know, Lee, is slow. We had a stopgap measure in place had we not found Luke at the time we did, where one of our freelancers who regularly attends and is responsible for these meetings recordings was set to, continue with the schedule and, sort of the daily A and B's of the job. His name is Paxton McLean. What we found with Paxton is that he also, in a different respect, is very capable. With, our budget in mind, we've decided that we want him to continue in this ancillary role where, especially as Luke is not only getting accustomed to the job, but ideally focusing on bigger picture things, which we'll get to in a few minutes. We can have Paxton, help out with the scheduling with a bunch of other freelancers that kind of work all in tandem with each other. So we think we found, at least for now, this nice kind of 1-2 punch. It's obviously Luke is the guy, but Paxton is a very capable, interested party here who wants to just help do his part, Luke, in making sure the recording gets up to YouTube the day after and making sure we have all the resources in place, the evening of or day of. Is that fair?
Yeah. So what we talked about was he would kind of run the show with the meetings. So he'll record the meetings, run the bottom thirds for the meetings, and then post it to the government and education channel as well as YouTube after the fact.
So, yeah, Paul, I don't think there's really anything else there regarding Paxton, or did you want to make a?
No, it's just a line item underneath your opening remarks. So.
Yeah, well, it is important because Paul and I spoke to him this week, and we obviously we've sort of learned this process is that we have to be careful how many people speak and convene when we're not having this meeting. Otherwise, it becomes official business, and obviously need to put that information out. So Paul and I elected to speak with him and kind of just solidify for now his position, especially in this period of transition as Luke gets ramped up, but more importantly, we look to other things. One of them, and I'm not even sure this should be a big subject for the meeting, but the need and desire to kind of streamline and make the search capabilities easier to find the archives of these meetings. And I can tell by your reaction, I'm guessing you agree. It's a no-brainer, and there might be some very manual labor involved. Again, I'm a little reluctant just considering time and another item of business to get in the weeds on it. But Luke, I think the key takeaway from your vantage point, if I remember correctly, was to just really figure out what's needed and to solicit, the commission's viewpoints, obviously meeting Lee here and others, and just find out where is the missing link in terms of easy searchability, where people can just find these meetings, like a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, and I definitely looked at it, and I do notice that we aren't using the playlists as we should. So like YouTube has actually, you can set the playlist so you can, put each Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, each meeting, special meeting, regular meeting, you could kind of organize it that way, which would help. You could organize by year, and all that. And then I also noticed that the search feature is missing on YouTube as well. Like you could search within the video. So I'll have to kind of dig and find why that's not showing up. And I did do some work. I changed the logos, changed some of the thumbnails to kind of make it look a little bit neater, a little bit cleaner, more organized. So I think that all kind of ties in.
Lee, is this something that you have observed before or heard about, being an issue?
Yeah, and it just makes total sense. If you're going to have a public access channel, the public has to be able to access it. And it's not all that accessible as it is now.
So is it more like the government or the education channel? Do you know?
I don't know. I've heard some people talk about it, but I can't say that. I don't think they've ever really specified.
Okay, and is it the searchability of the
Yeah.
website or
Yeah.
the YouTube videos themselves?
I think it's a little of both.
Yeah. Okay. Because I am kind of playing around with the website too to make it a little more, easy, user friendly, to kind of easier to see. Because there's like about 6 different places you could find different things, and it's not in the right order, or it's not labeled correctly. So I think doing that as well will help organize it and make it a little simpler. So there's not 6 different places that you have to try to dig deep to find. If we could do one, you want this, click this, you want this, click that, and it's right in front of you, easy to find.
Simple is always better.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Lee, this is a little bit of an opportunistic question, but given that we're one person down and obviously we were 2 before your presence, is this an area without, being too defining, if you will, role wise, where, you could kind of take on just a position here, and it may not even require much because Luke's really got this, but to just in a sense and help ensure that what Luke does is meeting the commission's satisfaction.
Sure. I mean, if you're asking me to do the mechanics of it, I'm not.
No.
I don't.
No.
I defer to Luke. I'm sure Luke knows.
Yeah, I
the
got
mechanics of it.
that.
But I'm good, because I wouldn't. But I'm happy to give you my thoughts about it as you go along.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just if you could just get the specifics of what is missing and what, like, say, okay, instead of just saying it's hard to search, like what if we could get like the specifics of, okay, the website's hard to search, or YouTube, the videos are hard to search, the channels are hard to search. You know what I mean? Like this way it's, I know exactly what to dive into, and I'm not just looking at like too big of a picture, and I know, because I could change the whole YouTube site around, and it's like, no, wait,
Yeah.
the website is hard to understand,
Right. Well, I know a couple of people who live in my neighborhood who try to access it frequently and get frustrated by it. So I'll talk to them. Sure, that's no problem.
Yeah. If I could just get some feedback with that, I think that the more feedback, the better, and we can get an idea of what.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, everybody can chime in if somebody has an issue with it, but it's just a matter, Luke, of I think sometimes it's nice when, especially when you pose a question. Lee, we do have an alias that we need to get you added to, which I'm finding very effective right now, where if someone writes to FairTV Commission or Fairfield CT, we do have an alias where people, can email us without emailing us personally. And I want to make sure I get you on to that chain so you can see in real time if there's, what the public is saying or what others, are pointing out.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Well, the thing about that's been complained to before, to me, an RTM member complained about the YouTube channel. She was struggling to find a Board of Ed meeting, and she was punching in the date of the meeting because she knew the date of the meeting, and it wasn't coming up right away. And then she was trying to scroll through, and everything was out of order, she said.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that helps. I'll definitely look into that and kind of clean that up. You know, as now that I'm kind of like got my head wrapped around everything for the most part, now I can kind of get into starting to knock down on these you know, checklist stuff.
How,
Okay.
how labor intensive is it to organize all that stuff?
I mean, like I said, it's not too bad. It's just I got, like I said, I have to take a look and see how bad it is unorganized, and you know, see how far back everything goes. You know, 'cause if it's just a few dates and whatnot, I have to reorganize. That's not too bad. But you know, if it's redoing the whole thing, that's a little more labor
Yeah,
intensive.
sure.
But I definitely do see some spots, so that's not it should. And like I said, I'll play around with it and see what I can do.
Okay.
Okay, so
Those were my, I realize those were my remarks and I don't want to break from decorum here, but Paula, do you want to pick up where I left off? Because I just want to make sure we're holding to the agenda.
yeah, so we kind of skipped around a little bit, but why don't we do the production manager's report now? So Luke, take it away.
Okay. So I guess I mean we kind of touched on it with the YouTube channel, and kind of what I've been doing with the logos, the thumbnails. I've been working with Will and Dave about like the invoicing and all that, trying to get that, you know, a little more simplified. And
Dave is, by the way, Dave is David Kelly of
yeah,
the
and you too. I
town.
mean, you're kind of in it too.
Oh, I'm trying not to be, but
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm kind of trying to streamline that, make that a little bit easier to use from, you know, and we're not using, you know, Word documents, and we're, you know, kind of converting that to PDF so it's easier to sign and pass off. Um, I guess, I mean, I've been doing a bunch of other things like, you know, that it's just basically back end stuff that you guys, you know, would bore you guys. So, one big thing that I do want to mention, and I did set it up yesterday, which we are going to stream live to YouTube now. So we're gonna test that. I did want to run that by you guys. I was thinking about testing that for the BOE meeting tomorrow, and kind of doing it on the DL. You know, stream it live, see how it works out, and if there's any kinks, we could kind of work it out before, you know, putting it on the agenda as like to stream live, click here to go to YouTube. But I think that would help not only the
huge.
whole YouTube searchability, but it'll bring a lot of audience members to the YouTube channel. So, you know, it's with the education channels, we're kind of limited to bad quality, and I've talked with Optimum and Frontier with this, and that's just the way it is with the cable companies. They're kind of maxed out with 480, which is super low definition. With the YouTube, we could do full HD, which is a lot better quality, and it gives us, you know, it gives the users a better viewing, you know, all around. So I think that that whole thing would help. And as well as if we do end up doing the court cases, we could stream live to YouTube right from the courtroom, and we won't need that many equipment, and it's pretty easy to set up, so we won't have to drag everything over there and to stream it to the government channel or whatever.
That sounds great, Luke.
Yeah, so like I said, I just want to make sure with you guys that's fine if we test it tomorrow. But like I said, we're not gonna we would do it kind of on the low, test it, make sure everything works, and then next meeting is, I think there's a BOE on Tuesday or something that they added, so we'll add it to the agenda, add it to the site as a link to click to get to it.
Is that something we need to vote on, David? Well, I don't think so, right? Like that is like
I don't
to,
think so.
to me, this is something that this is the discretion
This
of
is
the production
workflow.
manager to test a capability.
Mhm.
It is.
And then if we want to pursue it and it works, then we can vote on it and approve it, right? Like,
Amen.
Take credit for it.
yeah, and then take all the credit.
Lee, you're proving your value very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Yeah, I mean, Luke is establishing workflow here.
Yeah.
And as I always said, you know, Luke, you're stopping down your day job and I'm trying to answer you in a timely way. But, you know, we are poised to let you, you know, make more and more decisions. And it's, you know, along the lines of, you know, barring they have on some sort of consequence, like, you know, just go ahead and do these things that you think are
Yep.
right.
Okay.
And,
And like I said, I know we can't stop the stream to the government channel and the education channel just because that's how we're funded and everything. So we still would stick with that, but I just think that YouTube Live gives it a whole different little updated look, and obviously
because
watching a video in high definition is a lot a lot better and a lot easier, and it could reach out to a lot more people because not everyone has cable TV. Like we said, I think me and Dave talked about in one of the meetings that we had, or the phone calls. I mean, how many people have Optimum in Fairfield rather than, everyone can access YouTube. So,
there's nothing people like in this town more, at least on this Facebook group that I belong to brag about dropping Optimum.
yeah,
And I'm sure that's well beyond Fairfield, but I think it just, obviously you have sometimes an older or more entrenched group of people who've been doing something for so long, they don't want to break from that. But this is the way to go. And even it gets down to technicalities, like in an SD, it's hard enough to see who's even talking half the time
yeah,
on a good day, right? So
yeah.
when you are in HD, you have a better sense. And I think it's important, particularly because we aren't jumping around. Do you want to give Lee a quick, and really us all, like a super quick top line of the equipment scenario with, what's been, and I don't know if you have an update, but what's been ordered or where things stand?
So with the grant, I just kept it. So I talked to Jerry a little bit, actually. I had a phone call with him, and yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I talked to him a little bit about everything that was already on the grant. So it's all backup equipment for the server. So that definitely is needed, and it's the backup equipment for like the camera and what stuff like that goes along with that. So it definitely is needed. So we applied for the grant. I believe last week they sent it through, and I think it was like $9,000 or so of backup equipment for the server for just the day-to-day operations. So it's good. It's always good to have a backup.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I talked to Dave Kelly a little bit. There's some software that needs to be updated, like Photoshop, Premiere Pro, some video editing software that is just super outdated, and it's almost, licenses are expiring and all that. So I kind of put in some for that, but it's not much. It's like, a couple $100 or whatever. But that's just some of the other stuff we're updating.
Okay,
That's great.
excellent.
Yeah,
Um,
just
I think you need Luke to, you're getting a cadence down with Dave. We're all learning more about his role, and it's interesting as he's shared some insights from how things were done versus how they are and will be done and should be done, sort of the basics. But I do think from my one meeting with him, like, it's an area that requires just your ongoing interest, if you will, and just asking him for updates. And, I
yeah,
know he's trying to help us and he's doing a great job, but we just want to be sure, that doesn't get, pushed to the side
yeah, yeah, I
by
agree.
others.
Yeah, no, I like, especially now. I mean, I feel bad. I got a lot of emails going back and forth between you guys, but like I said, I'm just trying to get a nice process going, and if we could get it set up now, it'd be nice and smooth going forward.
And Luke, did you ever settle, did that freelancer get paid that you had raised the question about via email to Dave?
Yeah, so according to Dave Kelly,
Wow.
the check was mailed out to him on the 15th, so that carried over to the weekend. So I'm assuming he should have got it either today or tomorrow. So I told him to look out for it. If he doesn't see it, I'll touch base with the finance department and see if they, if for some reason it didn't go out. But according to Dave Kelly, it should have got emailed out or mailed out. Sorry.
Okay. Um, okay, so Luke, do you have anything else as part of your report?
I think that's about it.
Just,
It's
sorry, let's just check one other box, Luke. I'm speaking for you here, but
Yep.
I want to be thoughtful about this because communication is our bread and butter. And Luke was informed today or yesterday that he can't use the email that we've set up for him
Oh
because,
yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah, so I
I
could
just,
talk
yeah,
to that if you want. So
please.
Dave Kelly he said that the HR department doesn't want me using the Fair TV product manager or production manager email because it's technically listed as an individual working for Fairfield CT, even though I'm a freelancer. So I guess having just the Fair TV email is technically the group, not the individual. So I guess by having the individual email, it's I don't know, they don't want it to be confused as someone working for the town. So he said, I could either make my own or I could just use the Fair TV. So I don't know. I mean, the Fair TV email is kind of on the site as the contact point of contact. So I mean, I know Paxton's been using that for the last what, like three
Wait,
months.
just so you're, Luke, sorry, I just want to clarify something because this actually gets confusing. When you say the Fair TV, you're referring to the one Paxton's using because we have this alias that I need to get Lee on, which is.
Yeah, not the Fair TV
Fair
Commission.
TV, okay.
Yep. Yeah, so the Fair TV
Yeah,
Commission
yeah.
is, I believe that's a group that you guys are in.
Are you on that, Luke?
I'm not, no.
Okay, we'll probably just, I'm not sure if, should Luke be on that?
No.
Probably not.
You're right, because that sort of goes back to the issue that he's not technically,
Right.
he's like, you're employed by us, even though the town did
Yeah.
the contract and all that. Okay, let's just keep, I'm sure you'll be fine not being on that. By the way, it is an easy way for you though to reach all of us if you're ever
Yeah.
not sure of.
Yep.
Anyway, putting that aside, you're talking about the email.
So the
Oh,
Fair TV at fairfieldct.org.
Oh, so wait, it
That-
isn't Fairfield.
That's the one that Paxton's been using.
But how is that different than, I'm so confused. If it ends at fairfieldct.org, then why is that one legit?
I have no idea. I mean, I could talk to the HR if you want tomorrow.
Well, but they're asking you not to use something that.
Let me
was
see if I can pull
created.
it up. They
No,
said,
I'm looking at it. It doesn't make sense because then they're gonna say that other one that Paxton's using isn't good either.
yeah, I don't, maybe because it's titled for an individual. I mean,
I wonder if this is a scenario maybe where we just create like a Gmail, right? Like
so I have a Gmail I created because I don't know, I just prefer Google. So I use, Google Calendars for the scheduling with the freelancers. I use Google Drive for all the transferring files and whatnot. So I do have it's the exact same Fair TV, PROD, MGR at gmail.com. So like I said, I can continue using that. The only thing is like all the sites are linked to Fair TV at
Which is what,
fairfieldct.org. So I mean,
right.
Paxton's been good about forwarding anything onto me. So I mean, whatever you guys think. I mean, I'm happy.
The question is, should Luke take over what Paxton's using, which aligns with where all the, everything's listed? But Paxton now has already kind of built up this workflow and boy, these things can actually get confusing and really
I mean,
mess up our communication.
Dave Kelly said we could just share it, but that makes no sense to me because you
No,
have two people.
no, it's terrible.
That's a bad workflow because you
Yeah,
can't.
remember I was emailing Paxton and Jerry was answering
Yeah.
and not saying he was Jerry and I didn't know who I was talking to.
I mean, also like, how do you keep track of what email is new, what's already been sent?
No,
I mean, you
replied.
have
That's
no
annoying to
emails.
him. Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
So what do we want to do? This is not a voting matter. This is just a technical issue. Do we want Paxton to keep what he has as long as he's fine with forwarding everything to you? Or do I then go ask the town and this, maybe the same entity, and I can't remember his name, but he works in IT, who's going to add Lee to our alias, our commission alias, to also replace, or maybe ask Tom Brenner to replace on all the town literature. But who's writing Paxton from the town?
No one really,
No
but
one.
like I think on the site, which I can change, it says on the site it says like for any questions contact fairtv.org or whatever. The fairtv at fairfieldct.org. But I could change that on the site, no problem.
David, I think we should get clarification from the town on why. Like, I don't want to poke the bear
I know, because I don't
and
want
end up
Paxton's
losing both email
to go
addresses.
right. That's the one.
But I mean, it's an illogical.
I mean, if
In
it, if
my
it was
opinion.
like your guys where it was a group where me and Paxton are both, our Gmails are both added to it, then that makes sense. I mean, any request goes to that, it goes to both of us and we handle it, but it just doesn't make sense why he could have that one, but I
Right.
can't have.
I'll call Dave Kelly. And I'm not going to email him. I'll just call him and ask what is the reasoning
Yeah,
for
I mean,
this, because we don't. I would hate for Paxton's email to go away because they overlooked that. This is really a silly decision unless we're missing something here.
And I think, David, like, we can, regardless of where any of the individual emails end up, we could set up a, similar to the commission group, we can set up a Fair TV managers alias that gets
Sure.
both of these guys in their individual inbox. And,
yeah, that
obviously,
would
if there's
almost,
something that's specific to one of them, try to keep things focused and not, overwhelm them. But if there is stuff that's more generic, we can then
yeah,
blast it out
that,
to
I
everybody.
think that would be the best solution. I mean,
Yeah.
any request is, I mean, that's almost like a contact us at so and so. It's
Mhm.
just like a basic email that any request or whatever goes to.
Well, then
You
why
know?
don't, for that matter, we just set that up, and once it takes hold for a little while, both you and it, we just make sure that that's what we're going with. Then we'll just tell the town to replace what's listed on these sites. I thought what was listed on the sites was our commission alias.
It
I
is.
can't
So
believe we're
it's
talking about
both.
this. Okay.
Yeah. So whatever you guys think, like I said, I don't mind
Well,
using either one.
let's do it. We'll recommend it, and you recommend it. I just want to make a decision now. Why don't you just create something for you and Paxton, but you still need your own because we need to get away from going to Luke Altieri at
Well,
Gmail.
yeah, I have. So like I said, I have it's the same exact username. So it's FairTV PRODMGR at Gmail.
Could you send us all an email from
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've
place?
been, like I said, I've been using that. I made that as a,
Okay.
just 'cause, like I said, I use it for the Google Calendar and all that.
Do you have Lee's email?
Do you want me to just send it to the Fair TV Commission? That would take care of everything.
Yeah, Lee's not. on.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not on that yet. You're right.
Well, I just want Lee to know, especially, yeah, I mean, just add Lee for now. I mean, sorry, just send it to all, just send it to all of us individually and add lee.g.camlet, Kamlet @gmail.com, if I
Okay.
may speak freely. Because then you're sending from the source that we're going to be using and say in the subject line, like new email for, Fair
Yeah.
TV
Gotcha.
production manager. Because
Okay.
these things do get confusing, and we've been doing a good job, but
Yeah, it's just
know,
like I told Dave Kelly, I was like, I already kind of built up this
Right.
other email. It's a shame that, I mean,
one thing that I really like is, especially now as we, saw some complaints and interest from the town, is when they're contacting us, being the commission, that they not have our individual emails, which I use mine for all my daily business needs, as
yeah,
I'm sure,
exactly.
some of you may or may not, but I mean, it's a great buffer. And then it hits all of ours at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So,
That would be
I,
nice if we could do that for the Fair TV. If not, if they won't let me keep this.
well,
This
I'll
other
call
email.
Dave, but set that up, send it to us.
Yeah.
And, all right, in the interest of time, Paula, shall we move on?
Yeah, so in new business, we have discuss and vote on archival meeting system in parentheses YouTube. But do we have something that we need to vote on for that, Dave?
No, I put vote next to everything so that if we did decide there was a vote needed, it wouldn't have the appearance of that we just didn't alert people that we might vote on it. So
Okay,
there's nothing to vote on as far as that goes. I think Luke's going to continue down this path.
right. Okay, so we already covered the archival situation. So the next thing is discuss and vote on the Phil Pyle sentencing and Phil Pyle trial coverage.
Yeah.
So Lee, because you're not on this email thing yet, there was, well, actually, I should back up and say that as we were in the throes of trying to replace Jerry and hire somebody new that it fell on the commission to do so, the town, Tom Bremer asked us on behalf of Brenda Kupchak to reach out to the judge in the Phil Pyle trial and request permission to broadcast live the trial, broadcast live from the courtroom. In the throes of it, David and I were so sort of swamped with this personnel issue that we were trying to deal with that we didn't really discuss the merits of whether we should or should not cover it. We basically said, write a letter, we'll sign it, asking permission, but just understand that we are making no promise that we will actually, if the judge says yes, that we are making any promise that we are going to actually, A, have the manpower to do this, and B, that we haven't even discussed it as a commission yet, whether we want to do this on Fair TV. So right now, the letter has been written and it's in the hands of the judge. We have
Did you
not.
see the response? We did get a response.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, and this is where communication comes in. Sorry to sound like a broken record, but today,
Okay.
well, and I thought for some reason you were on this, but this is, Luke, help me out here. You must be on this.
Yeah, let me find it.
I guess it's
Um,
just you and me on this. This is why,
From Michael Snyder.
yes.
Yeah, the thing was me, you, Jen, and Tom.
Yeah, could you all, media authorization, can I also ask you to, I'm gonna kick this over to everybody right now.
Yep.
I didn't realize this wasn't written to, well, I'll just do Fair TV Commission, Lee, and I'll just, and then I'll just copy you, so we're all in kumbaya here. So sorry, Paula, I just wanted,
No, that's fine.
this just came 6 hours ago. Judge Dayton authorized the filming of the sentencing of Scott Bartlett on 7/24. And yes, that's a week from 2 days ago. No ruling has been issued for the trials for now. The next trial, remember, Paul, we were just talking about this. Begins jury selection, which the rules prohibit cameras. Let me actually not just read out loud a letter here. Luke, which email am I using for you here?
Just keep it the same one for now.
All right, Fair TV for here. I don't need to waste everyone's time. But let's just all take a look at this as we sit here because, okay, everybody should have it, including you, Lee. Essentially, we were given in summary form, we could film the sentencing, which yes, is coming up in a few days, and I'm not even sure if we wanted to do it, if we could. And Luke, I said very clearly, like, even if there was no issue with any of this stuff, we have made no promises. And Tom Bremer's letter to the judge made clear that we were just seeing if they were even open to it. My own view on this, and it sort of runs counter to my own personal view on the larger matter, which I want to hold off on talking about for now, is that since this is controversial, I am not necessarily interested in creating a dust storm over this filming the sentencing in 5 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then having that somehow become mud in the water, over the bigger question, why did you do this, blah, 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 this and that. So my view is not to film the sentencing from both a practical and a larger consideration point of view, and take the time we need to discuss, vote, hear others' opinions, because it is not so cut and dry, in my view, on whether this is something the Fair TV Commission should do. Paula, is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I totally agree. I do not think that we should cover the sentencing.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a sentencing where, you can, it's a sentencing. It's not just one day. It's what, 1 hour or something like that. I mean, you know,
Yeah, and what was requested of us in the beginning was to cover the trial.
right.
So
So
I think that,
let's not even if everyone wanted to cover the sentencing, Luke, I would not, I would sooner tell you or me or somebody to go with their iPhone,
Yeah.
do a live stream than start,
Yes.
turning over leafs and incurring costs,
Well, I mean,
with
we
ways to
do
go.
we do have a setup that I've kind of thought about in case we
Right.
ended up going with it. So it's
Right.
up to you guys if we do it or not. But on
Well,
my end of it, I just wanted to know that we could do it if you wanted to. So
I don't want to be a fly in the ointment, and Will and Lee, I don't want to cut you out of this conversation, please.
No. So
But
yeah.
is there wisdom to doing what you're doing with the Board of Ed meeting, where we do some sort of dry run? We'd be very honest with the court. I mean, and saying we're not going to stream this or broadcast it, but in anticipation of potentially filming the trial, we wanted to test out some equipment that, would be conducive. Luke, would that be helpful to you, or do we not need a sentencing to?
I don't know. Like you said, it just maybe by just us just being there might be the fly in the ointment. Like
So
I think
yeah.
I mean if we get this BOE thing set up and if we're gonna do it set up for the court, it's gonna be super simple. Like one camera, because that's all we're allowed, a laptop that's gonna stream, and that's it, and the internet. So it's not something that we would really need to test out. We would just go live to YouTube. So now we know that works. So we can test that in the office if we wanted to.
Yeah, David, I'm in agreement. I think the potential fallout from the optics
Mhm.
of being there, if we ultimately decide that, hey, this isn't appropriate given the charter, I think the fallout of that is a lot worse than if there's technical
Okay.
errors.
Technical.
People are very understanding, like whether they are or not, things break,
Okay.
right? Like,
Plus, if
it'll
you're
be
trying
fine.
if you're trying to test it for the courthouse, you can do that in an empty courthouse.
Exactly.
In
Yeah.
an empty
You don't.
courtroom, a judge allow you to do that.
It's a good idea, though.
If you go there during the sentencing, then you've got it. Then you're going to be having
Yeah.
to make a decision of whether to use it.
Right. Yeah.
But you don't want to
And
make
as
that
you
in
said-
retrospect, I don't think.
No, you don't need to do a rehearsal, as you said, at the sentencing where there's ramifications. But Luke, I mean, as a matter of speaking, if we're anywhere but having officially rejected this request at some point before, say, jury selection begins, there might be a scenario where you can just ask Michael Snyder, hey, we want to go and take a visit over there. It doesn't even
Yeah.
have to be during a video.
Exactly. And I think like Lee said, if for us, what we're going to be doing is just testing out the camera, making sure the Wi-Fi is, or whatever connection we have is strong enough.
Do that at 7:30 in the morning or 5.
Yeah, we don't need to do that when there's a sentencing hearing. We could
Yeah.
do that after it's empty courthouse. We don't need
Yeah,
everyone there.
cleaning up. Okay.
So to that end, I'll make a motion to forgo the coverage of the Phil Pyle sentencing that is taking place next week.
I second that.
Can I just ask a question?
Please.
Which is, now that you've gotten permission, and I'm not arguing, I think this is a bad idea, but now that you've gotten permission, does that create a problem of its own?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay.
Tom Bremer's letter was always, we have no obligation to do this.
Okay.
And
Okay.
judging by the kind of
Yeah, it was-
formality of,
It was worded like that in the email, like multiple times, that there's no obligation and there's
Oh, okay.
if you don't
Okay.
if you don't want to do it, or if you can't do it, that's fine. There's no obligation. Like, it said that a couple times, I believe. So
Okay. Okay.
it did. And Lee, you're bringing up a good point, because in, my world in production, I don't like to ask, for things that I'm not going to, follow through on. But, Tom was very diligent about that. And he wrote the letter, and he sort of not only took us off the hook, but he gave us the window to,
Okay.
make our own decision once we knew where the court
Good.
stood.
Okay.
I don't think they may have their own personal view, like, why did we ask if we're not going to do this? But we need to worry about, I mean, Paula, why don't you pick up sort of where you left off, just so we're all, speaking from the same kind of basic knowledge here.
Okay, well, why don't we go back to Will's motion to vote
Don't
on
we
the
vote?
sentencing? And then
Right.
we'll go back to talk about the full trial.
Exactly.
Okay,
So all in favor of foregoing coverage of next week's sentencing? Aye.
aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So yeah, I think now we can talk about merits of
And cons.
the trial. Yeah.
So wait, okay, so we just need to back up for a second because for some reason I did not get that email.
Yeah, I still didn't get it yet either, David.
I haven't. So basically, what is she saying?
I
She's
think
saying you
all
can
it goes to your, sorry, isn't this going to your junk mail?
No, because I got the email that came through today from Karen Wackerman came through to my Gmail account.
Paula, here, I'm just starting a new chain here because I want everyone to, Paula, Will, Lee, Lee, you're gonna double up here and,
Right.
I'll CC, Mr. Altieri, Fair TV. I always have to, Fair TV production manager is the third one down. Okay. So just please, before we continue, make sure you have it.
This is the same thing you already sent the media authorization.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
just want to be sure Paula and Will have it.
I don't know. Hang on one second. I can't.
It might take a minute. I just hit.
I just got it. All right.
Okay, I just got it.
Feel free to take a minute here to read it. It's important that that us all are seeing the communication here, particularly this is going to be the biggest matter we touch. So Lee, timely presence to join again. An interesting time to join. I hope in a good way, of course. So we've decided to officially decline that now. Should I just take, as a matter of process, and I don't think this is a voting matter, should I simply respond to Michael Snyder and say, given the timing of this, we're not going to cover the sentencing, but we'll await,
Yep.
further,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
I'll say it like we'll just leave open the trial. So there's actually they didn't even give permission for the trial. So
Yeah.
Right.
so that's actually a huge point here because we can have the best debate in the world and agree to it, but
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, so I just want to go back and just so I have everybody's up to date because I feel like Lee is a little bit left out of this because he didn't see the email that came through to the commission email today. So I just want to explain that quickly. And Lee, I will be forwarding the email that we got from
Okay.
one of the women who's on the Democratic caucus. There's concern about violation of the Fair TV charter by us airing the trial on our air on Fair TV. I'll send you her letter so you can read it. Will has already seen it. Dave has already seen it. And I actually, after you've had a chance to review it, I am actually going to make a motion to not vote on this until our next meeting because the soonest that we were going to be faced with this is October 2nd. And so we don't really need to make any decision until we hear from the judge whether we can even do it or not.
October 2nd. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Having slated to be right. I mean, we in theory have 2 months, but we would be well served not to wait till September 19th if possible, or whatever the date that this meeting falls on in September.
So
I'll second that motion, Paula, to take this up at the August. I think it's the 16th. I'll edit it
August
to make sure it's
16th is
correct. But yeah,
our next, August 16th is our next Fair TV Commission meeting.
So can I interject here, full disclosure?
Please.
Long before I thought about coming on the Fair TV Commission, I booked a trip to Europe that's going to have me away for the last 2 weeks of August. I only mention that because I don't know if you want to postpone a meeting or you want to, I mean, I can't get out of it. So
Anyone who goes to Europe should not be on this commission at all.
So why
That's a
don't
silly
we-
way to put it.
Why don't we float it till the September meeting? Because honestly, like, we're not going to be, I mean, because Luke already has the technology in place to do it. And if we have to test it, he can test it. So it's not a question of whether we can physically do it. It's a question about whether we want to do it, and we have to, so.
Yeah, with that said.
And there will be another commission member, hopefully, by that time. But what I would say is, and I second the motion to, like I said, to delay it, and we can revise the date that we're delaying it to. I think it might be worthwhile still to kind of talk through, if it's not even specifically to the Phil Pyle trial, our interpretation of that charter, because I think that's what this gets down. There's two things here. One is the interpretation of the charter and what we're limited to do, and the second, which is like an offshoot of that, is the nonpartisan part of the FairTV Commission. Because I think that in reading the email, I'm seeing that it's from the RTM member who's sending this as a civilian, that the concern is with our abiding by the charter, but it feels like there might be a partisan concern here, and I think we should get to the bottom of that and figure out, are we actually limited to these 5 types of meetings, and what constitutes our ability to do a secondary content meeting, and then more broadly, and then specifically, like, what is it about this that feels partisan? And that may be my ignorance as a 3-year resident of Fairfield. I might be ignorant as to why this this trial might be perceived as a partisan subject. But I think those are probably two. We should probably address those separately, and it might be worthwhile like diving into it now.
Yeah. By the way, just a quick thing, Lee. Obviously, we all take vacation, and that's a necessity of our lives, and great that you're going overseas. But we also can get around that by having, this is such an important matter, that normally I would say, okay, you're going to miss that one, but I would consider rescheduling that to become a special meeting, if only for you to not only hear, but give your take as a longtime resident of this town.
Be a part of that.
I would like you to too, because I don't want you to come back and then you're sort of like in the same position you are today, where you're just grasping at what we've all been able to push forward on. And I have picked up some history from, the year and a half I've served in this commission with other initiatives, shall we say, and that what has stood in the way of us pursuing those that have seemingly been far less controversial, or haven't even necessarily taken on a partisan tone. They've just provoked questions of concern, and in the end of the day, we haven't done them, period. So if we could just use some time though now, just to get some momentum with all of us here, having some exchange, I would really value that. Even though we're tabling any votes for the foreseeable future. Hello?
Yeah.
Fine,
So,
with me.
Okay. So why not just to do this in a truly democratic way? Something I might be useful here is, Paula, maybe you can present, a snapshot of the concerns from Karen and others who you might have spoken to. I would love for Lee to have, and for this commission to have in front of them, the charter language, which I know is embedded in another email that you might have.
Yeah, I have. I
Are
just
you?
just trying to figure out how to share, because it's telling me that WebEx doesn't have the permission to share my screen, which I'm not really sure why, but
Could you email?
You might be able to do it. Give me 1 second here. I can do it.
Okay, because it's not even letting me open my system preferences right now. I don't know why. So I'll forward this to you. Will
I can also share it. I've got the emails
I
up
could
here.
share it too. You got
you
it,
have
Will?
it? The one with the charter language?
How does that look?
There it is. Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Well, so first is the Karen
Oh,
Wackerman
that's
email, but could we look at the charter language first?
Sure. Yeah. Is that more clear?
yep.
It's
Does that
great
work?
for
Okay.
me. And maybe you could punch, or can I do this? You can actually zoom in on your own here. But I think the key line, if you look at, well, I mean, they are all key lines, but starting at 22-1, there is hereby established a program for the recording of video and audio production, editing, live broadcast, rebroadcast of the town of Fairfield public education and government meetings. The program should provide the residents the ability to view government and education meetings. Okay. So we know that that's what Paxton and freelancers help us with, and Luke oversees. The FairTV Commission shall have the responsibility and shall oversee the implementation of this chapter, which is interesting because we also have the ability, I'm told, of changing this charter. They're calling it a chapter. Not sure I understand the legalese here. But where it gets interesting is if you go down to, yes, the secondary content.
And this is where, like, you know, not that I'm a lawyer, but I do deal with a decent amount of contract and legalese all day. You know, I think 22-1, 2, and 3 clearly lay out that our
Mandate.
our remit is these meetings, right? And then 22-5 makes it very clear that these meetings of the town government, education, planning and zoning, etc., take priority, and anything that interferes with that is in direct conflict with the charter. So as long as those are funded, that they have to be fully funded, fully capable. And then my interpretation of 22-4 is that anything that is government or school related is potentially up to our discretion. And I guess, you know, my thing is a trial considered government or school, public school related? And that's where I think and I can click over to it at some point, but the letter from Ms. Wackerman.
Who has sued Scott Bartlett and these other folks? Is it the town of Fairfield or?
I presume it's the state of Connecticut.
I think it's the state of Connecticut.
And you know, I don't like to presume things, but yeah, I'm in agreement. I think my presumption would be it's the state of Connecticut. Which, if you're interpreting, you know, maybe to a fault, traditionalists in the interpretation of the written law, that seems to potentially be outside of our remit, right? It's not Fairfield town government. It's certainly of interest, I think, to Fairfield town government, and as a taxpayer who's on the hook for fixing this disaster,
$10-15 million or something.
yeah, like, you know, it's our hard hours that pay for this F up. So I get it. Like I'd certainly be interested, and I think that, you know, the more publicity around this, you know, around getting to the bottom of what happened here, is probably for the better for the public. It does seem that it's not, in my opinion, it's probably not part of the charter.
So can I ask a couple practical, setting
Yeah.
aside the politics of it, because I don't know the system and the capacity of the system. But if you say that, I mean, all these things are things that take priority. The 5A through E are the things that take priority, right? I can tell you from experience of covering lots of court trials that they're unpredictable in terms of scheduling and in terms of time. So suppose, just for sake of argument, you're covering the trial, and there's a sudden special Board of Education meeting. Then do you miss that day of the trial? Have you got the capacity to do both? You know, those are some practical considerations you want to think about too, which have nothing to do with the politics. But if this is the primary, as it stands now, the primary focus of Fair TV, you could run into some problems if the capacity isn't there. And then there's also the question of, are you going to edit the trial? Are you just going to let it? Those can be hours and hours of stuff.
And yes, and that brings up, you bring up a really good point. I just want to answer part of that. We're not even allowed to put highlights of town meetings up, because as soon as you make an edit of a town meeting, therefore somebody has made a decision of, you know, what's important and what's not. Because I thought, wouldn't it be great for this town, and this is what's so frustrating, if instead of sitting through onerous 4-hour meetings, I mean, this Board of Ed thing, you know, it affects me and my family's life significantly, but I simply don't have 4 hours to, you know, watch a meeting, even if I go to the right time code, etc. If someone would give me a 5, 10, 15-minute video, I'd be watching it as soon as this meeting was done. And it's very frustrating that we cannot do that. Okay. So obviously, to your point, Lee, we would have to make the whole meeting, the whole trial accessible to the extent of us not making decisions on cutting something out. If there was a conflict, or Luke was sick, or Paxton was unavailable, or a Board of Finance meeting was rescheduled, all those things would have to take precedence, because we're doing this as a service to our residents, but not anything that, you know, we are not a for-profit, and we would not be, you know, people might be frustrated if we missed something, but, you know, we are not a TV, we are not core TV.
Right.
Which I think is,
but I think you're going to
personally disagree. Right.
You're going to complicate your situation if for some reason you can't send people on a day to something, you know, of who knows happens, and then you're going to get criticism for, well, why weren't you there? Plus the fact that with 5 defendants, this is not going to be a short trial. This is going to go on for weeks.
Well, I mean, we would just be agreeing to take on, I mean, you're right, but we wouldn't, I mean, our goal would be to take on, which trial starts October 2nd?
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
I think they've been bundled together, is my understanding.
Yeah, I think with the exception of the one defendant who's being sentenced, I think the rest are being tried together.
Right.
What I'll say, Lee, is like from a scheduling standpoint, as Paula, David, and I will know all too well, it is very unlikely that we would have a unforeseen meeting pop up on the calendar. Just the procedure to schedule a special meeting or to reschedule a meeting requires a period of notice to the town. And you know, keep me honest, David, what was it? We have to do it a month in advance, right? It needs to be 30 days notice.
Yes.
Something like that.
30 days notice, yeah.
So in theory, even if a conflict did arise, we would have 30 days as a commission, and you know, hopefully a meeting, and if not a special meeting, that we could then, well, I guess we couldn't do that, but we'd have the ability to work out a conflict between, you know, where Luke goes. But it's a great point. I think that thankfully
it's a good example.
Requirements would save us from that.
Here's the other example is, and I don't know what your scheduling process is, Luke. I assume you get a freelancer, you sign them up for X number of hours on a given day. I've been in a lot of court trials that you get all set up, and then the judge has a conflict. The judge calls a recess. You know, there's any number of things. So there's a budgetary aspect of it too that could, you know, and I don't know anything about your budget, but there's that consideration too. And again, I'm not at this point arguing for or against it. I'm just trying to point out some, from my experience, these things happen.
Yeah, we did add additional money in the budget to cover this, but like you said, I mean, if it does
How much?
I had to take a look at the numbers again, but remember we said it was like 20,000 or so?
Yeah, I do. And we were also told, Lee, um, you know, whether, I think we were told to some extent, there are additional funds, out there for us as we sit here right now. And is our fiscal year July 1 to June 30? Okay. So I'm sorry, it's fairly, but as we've learned, especially with Luke coming in, is like we have some extra funds, and there's this whole notion like you lose what you don't spend. I sort of hate that whole mentality because especially as a public entity, the last thing we want to do is, yeah, I mean that was always the case in my private world, but like we're not trying to go and burn cash ever. It's taxpayer money, and if anything, we've been able, by the nature of what we think the job is and Luke's employment situation and everything, we've been able to come in under where we would have been had Jerry continued. And I will be the first to say we are much better positioned as we sit here today.
Okay.
So saving money and improving the quality. So that's all fine and great, but like as soon as $1 goes out the door to pay Paxton 8 hours to go to Bridgeport, whether there's a trial that day or whether the judge calls a recess and says, we'll come back tomorrow, one of the jurors is sick or whatever. I mean, Paxton has to get paid that day, right?
Yep.
That's the way the world works. And, this could get expensive. I mean, realistically speaking, you're bringing up really good points. What worries me, and I just would like to point this out, is here, I wanted to do this before this partisan matter crept in because I do think it's such a important thing. And you talk about people who can't find meetings, online. The frustration the town residents have had with finding out real-time information or any kind of information about this trial is staggering. I mean, I've read them, I've heard from them, and the news coverage of it is very minimal, sometimes 2 lines, 3 lines. And, we're not necessarily here to be a quasi fill-in news organization, but I do believe fundamentally that, we would be, when you take everything else out of it, providing a service to the residents of this town to have access to something that is so important, has such a big budgetary effect. Even though we are not deciding, we are not neither the jury nor the judge, right? So from that standpoint, I am supportive of doing it, and I'll actually take it a step further. The partisan nature of it is incredibly frustrating to me because this is how public service grinds to a halt. That no matter what we decide here, we would potentially be upsetting, a stakeholder, with a, whether that just be simply a Republican or a Democrat. And therefore the easiest thing to do is to cut and run. And boy, if like there's ever a time when I just want to do something, it's like, we want to provide the service and not feel the burden of, well, if we do this, then we are kowtowing to this side or we are disregarding that side. And I realize that doesn't necessarily make you popular, and that could create some agita, especially with this charter. But I do look at it like, if we have a mission to try and inform residents, about things that are of great consequence to them, and there's really a total lack of coverage that informs people, wouldn't we be doing an overall good omen for giving people the opportunity to just access this important information, period?
Yeah. I mean, David, I couldn't be more in agreement. I think the lack of information is frustrating. I agree that there will always be someone who doesn't want something to be covered for some reason. And I think it's crucially important that as a commission, we ensure that anything that FairTV does is never editorialized, right? And that to the frustrating point of like you can't edit meetings even to give highlights of something as potentially bland
We
as a
we
zoning
can,
commission
we
meeting.
wanted to put up, somebody wrote a poem, Paula, or a song
Mm-hmm.
about the suffering of the people of the Ukraine, and we were going to put it on YouTube, and then it was deemed that that would be taking a side, and we didn't
Right.
do it, and it was a beautiful thing, and we all liked it and wanted to do it, and by gosh, I thought to myself at that time, if we're not going to do this, and Paula can give context of something she was far more involved in with Sacred Heart, and
Mhm.
what exactly are we ever going to do outside of these 5 meetings that everybody is fine with and can't accuse us of either violating the charter or being partisan somehow?
Right.
And, really trying to chart a new course, because one of the reasons I think we're sitting here as a commission of 5 people, with such little experience, is that everyone else who's in recent times who sat on this committee, with the exception of Paul and myself, has bailed because we don't feel like we can get off the ground. And I'm not making this about me or Paula
Yeah.
or you guys, but I'm making it about, like, eliminating all the noise and saying, can we find, at least try to find a way to provide, service to the residents of this town in a responsible, cost efficient manner.
And I do think, like, I do think that we should cover the trial as an individual. Like that is something I think should happen. And in the theory, the trial itself should be nonpartisan, right? Someone's political party should not be on trial. It's the actions of people. They'll be judged by a jury of their peers, who a presumably diverse jury in many ways. All that said, I have to admit that the way that I read the charter, I think that
Right.
we are probably not off, like, as it writes today or reads today, we're probably not authorized to film a trial. It seems like it's not explicitly included the way that other things have been included, and it's not specifically Fairfield town government. That said, I think that maybe the impetus from that is we need to revise the charter. And I think this is something that Jerry had floated a few months ago, of something that we should consider. And I think that, depending on what we agree on, but a few simple words of, within the secondary content, additional coverage of Fairfield town government, Fairfield public schools, and, proceedings relevant and of high importance to the, residents of Fairfield, Connecticut, would give us the leeway to make a decision as a committee, case by case, no pun intended, of what we think is appropriate to cover. And again, in theory, a bipartisan committee would have the checks and balances to prevent anything from going off the rails. But I have to admit, I read this as a little bit more handcuffing of our ability of what we can cover than maybe it sounds like you and I would like it to be.
I agree, Will. I think that if you're reading the charter as it's written, as much as I don't think that we have the permission to do the trial, I don't think we had the permission to do the ill-fated Sacred Heart story that we were trying so hard to do, and that Jerry was encouraging us to do. I mean,
What was that on again, Paula?
that is on the emergency response system that's been created with a bunch of towns, Fairfield and
Right, sure.
Westport in particular, and it's actually being physically housed on SHU's campus.
Yeah.
So it's
And what was it? And why was that deemed not appropriate or not in alliance?
it's well, as you read, if you read the secondary limited content limited,
Can you scroll?
Sorry.
It's we should not authorize the production of any content or accept outside produced content for broadcast. And it was both of those things.
And who made that decision?
Who made the decision to do the story?
No, to say you couldn't do it.
Well, no, what ended up happening is it just sort of fell apart on its own.
Okay, I see.
It wasn't something that was like, we had this beautiful package and we wanted to run it and then we couldn't. The story fell apart because of people at Sacred Heart.
If the FairTV Commission authorized the production of it, and we said, hey, Luke, you go with a camera and blah, 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 and Rangel Paxton and a bunch of people, we're going to commission it. And you could go hire SHU students, but it's going to be a Fairfield TV
Right,
Commission
right,
production, would that have met the litmus test? Because this,
Well, I think that in my view, that the key is the outside produced content. If you get other, I mean, seems that one sentence precludes it, which is a
Right.
shame.
but then how are we going to produce anything? Because
We have to
Right.
change the
we're not,
charter.
right.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
I think that
this
is
charter is severely flawed then, because it actually handcuffs us from doing anything unless, actually the trial, but by accordance in that regard, the trial is fine because it's our own resources. And I think this notion of like outside produced, I mean, we can hire or engage people to produce something. We just can't air something that lands on our desk.
But even the first part of that sentence, David, the commission shall not authorize the production of any other content.
Mhm.
Wait,
Or
where is
accept
this? I'm sorry.
It's the
Oh,
last
sorry, the
sentence of
last sentence.
secondary content limited.
Oh, I see. Okay. I was not looking at that. I mean, yeah, that, based on that, we shouldn't even be having, discussions
Yeah.
So,
I think that a traditionalist interpretation of our charter, like a well, whatever. They've made it very explicit what the left and right limits are of what we can do, and I'm in agreement that I'm of the position that for Fair TV to be more effective and more relevant, particularly with a younger demographic, and to get more engagement, we probably need to relax the bounds of this a bit. And I think there's a way to do that without becoming a partisan entity or whatever it is.
So we
like
could
election
televise
based
the July 4th fireworks, Ludlow Ward football,
Mhm.
pick your sport, and okay.
well,
So,
it occurs to me
graduation.
that, it occurs to me that the trial itself, and I agree with you. I think, if you were to show the trial, you're only doing something that anybody could walk into the courtroom and see for themselves. If you're not providing commentary or anything else, but that's a separate question. But it does occur to me that there's enough public interest in the trial that if you can't do it because the charter precludes you, people are going to say, well, why isn't Fair TV showing us the trial? So it may give you may not be able to, we may decide not to do the trial, but it may give you the impetus to loosen up the language of the charter.
Right.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
That's very well said. Yeah.
That's very well said. Paula, do you remember when we had that meeting where you were, I think, on Zoom and I was sitting there with Tom Bremer? Do you remember what Pam Iacono said about changing the charter? Because it came up in that meeting, but I can't remember the context now. It's just frustrating. Jerry was there.
It's a
was like
several month, it's a several month process.
Right. Realistically, we were told it wouldn't happen before January.
Right.
Even
And-
that's on like a fast track basis.
And just gonna warn you that I know that changing this charter, they kind of made it sound like in that meeting, David, that it was something that was gonna be easy to do. You're gonna get fighting from both sides, and the lawyer is gonna get involved about every word we want to change, and there's gonna be pushback. I know it. And I know it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it, but I'm just saying, I think January is optimistic because I think it's going to go back and forth
Right. Yeah.
of the meetings that we'll have to go to and the revisions that will have to be made. And so it's going to be,
Here's my question. And I know you guys are going to say this doesn't address this very rigid language, but if somebody like a Karen Wackerman, I'm sorry, I can't see her. If someone like Karen Wackerman, who I don't know, and certainly appreciative of her taking an interest in this, so I want to be clear about that. It appears to me like would somebody like her, because I don't know her, have an issue if we said we want to do this because we think it's the right thing, but instead there is a premise that this is being, for lack of a better word, shoved down the residents' throats by somebody on the other political party side.
I didn't quite follow that.
I'm not following the question. Yeah.
Okay,
Like,
so
is you, because I have, I mean, is it the same as my question, which is I'm unclear on what the partisan part of this is. Like, let's pretend we were able to do it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Paula, you presented it very well, so maybe you could just give a quick snapshot of what the perception of the partisan issue is here, so everybody's clear-eyed.
With what? With the Democratic caucus having
So
concerns?
just the fact that this request came to us from Brenda, and it's a,
Oh,
you
the
know, there
request,
is
the
a
original
perception.
request. Yeah.
Right. There's a perception that the town select woman, that this is somehow, a project of hers and, maybe not done in consultation with others and is beneficial to, her, success, etc. Right? I mean, we should just, that's a view out there. I'm not taking an opinion on this.
No. That the idea that this is an election year and that the Phil Pyle trial is incredibly, I mean, it makes the Democrats look bad for the reason that the Democrats who are on trial acted very badly. I mean, like, there's no nice way to say that,
I didn't realize they were Democrat. I didn't even see, that's the thing. I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was under the
Knew that
impression
they were
these were
Democrats,
like,
and I could care less. I mean,
But
yeah, I
that's,
thought
but
these were
that's the issue
independent
is,
contract. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, so there's the political piece of it is that, um, during, an election year where, this piece of the Phil Pyle trial gets brought up again and again and again about the mismanagement that the Democrats had when they were in charge of Fairfield.
got it. Okay.
So that's a
This-
piece of it.
Yeah, it's highly explosive.
It is.
Yeah.
But I never knew, I mean, I never read between the lines, if you will, that it reflected, blame of an overall system. I mean, it's just so funny how it's not funny, it's really sad actually, how you see this on such a macro level, in the Congress, and, why nothing can get done, right? Because everybody's trying to find any shot they can take and say, look, the other guys aren't doing anything. And that's their case for themselves instead of actually, parading their success. Anyway, I get it. Okay.
So what I would say to that is that I think that discussion about the merits of covering something of that regard, someone can make the argument the first selectman doesn't set trial dates, right? The fact that it's an election year, lucky, unlucky, whatever. But I think that discussion and that back and forth is something that this commission should be having. And right now, the way the charter's written, it's a waste of everyone's breath, because I think no matter what we came to at the end of it, it's not within our remit to do that. So I don't know that this is like a voting matter, but I do think that we should explore the revision of the charter. As much of a pain in the ass that this is going to be, I think it being hard is not worth putting it off any further,
Right.
because there may be something in February that's worth having this conversation again, and I would like to be empowered to do that.
Out of deference to
versus
those,
handcuffed. Yeah.
out of deference to those who have an interest, whatever their motivations are.
Hmm.
I mean, I think, look, I mean, we try and answer people. We can't answer everybody on everything. But, in my view, if I'm sitting here, my response to, Brenda, if you will, or, people who are, is that our charter does not, my only response would be that our charter does not allow us to do this as it is currently written. And I would like to give them that runway so that we are not, I mean, in a sense, we're saying something to them, but
Mhm.
it could foster discussion. They could go to the town attorney and say, well, you're misreading it and this and that. And, you know, in the end, it might not make any difference, but I think we owe them that response. Merely because, you know, it is that important. I'm not saying, like I said, we always have to respond to everybody who asks for anything and everything, like somebody who I saw an email in my junk after July 4th that said, could we cover the parade? It was too late to respond then, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who would like us to, you know, different matter. Nobody would hopefully get upset politically or have a partisan bent to it. But I think the key point there is that we don't owe, but we would be doing good due diligence to inform those who have asked that our charter does not allow this to be done by us.
Yeah.
And see what
Yeah,
they say.
I know that we've voted to take up the item at the next meeting, but I think that that's fair probably to respond to, I mean, I think it's probably fair to respond to Ms. Walkerman that, you know, we're not going to cover the Phil Pyle sentencing next week, and that we're going to, you know, discuss the merits on our next meeting. But I think in between now and then, we should explore what it's going to take to open up discussion around revising the charter. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what are you saying we should inform Ms. Karen Walkerman about?
I know I put it down, sorry. But I guess the concern was, right, I would ask that you forbid the use of FairTV for its purpose. Okay. I think that we can reply, you know, we've made the decision that it's not within the charter to cover.
Well, I think you have to give the same response to Brenda and Tom Brown.
And to the first select woman. Yeah.
Right.
Well, so then we have to, are we ready to take a vote on it? Even though.
Well, are we allowed to do that since I don't know.
Allowed to do what?
It's on the agenda that we're voting on it tonight. We don't.
Well, I think that I don't think we have to. I mean, all we would take a vote on is that our response is X, right? That our charter does not allow us to do that. If between now and, I don't know, September 15th or whatever, you know, there's continued discussion and more facts are unearthed here by those stakeholders, you know, we can reconsider it. We're not saying 100% there's no scenario. And Will, I hope I'm not misinterpreting.
Yeah.
Our just view at this time is that our charter does not allow us to do it, period.
Period. That's simple.
That's it.
All right.
Let others make their case. Sorry. Let others make their case, if you can still hear me. You know, that we're misinterpreting the charter. I'm glad to listen to them, but.
So then, David, are you going to draft a note to Brenda and to Tom? Because I don't want to send, I think Brenda needs to be the first to know. I don't want to respond to Karen until I know that Brenda and Tom have been informed that we've.
Well, this meeting is public, you know, record, and the minutes we should make sure the minutes get out promptly. Mm-hmm. Where we're foreshadowing, we're going to tell them, but I will tell Brenda and Tom, I'm happy to run this note by you. I really want it to be succinct because I feel like the more I write, the more
the less said, the better.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
It's almost like a one-line email. At this time, the FairTV Commission does not believe it is within the scope. It's late, so I'm stumbling over my words. Within the scope of our charter to film this event.
Right.
So,
period.
If you guys want to see what I'm writing before I send it out, I'm more than happy to do so, but feel fairly confident that I can master a 3-line email to them, and you'll all be copied anyway. You know,
yeah, I actually think it should go out to, I don't know this Karen either, but you know, it is such a dicey and such a partisan issue that I think they should all be informed at the same time.
I agree.
Because then you'll get.
I don't even want to. I don't even want to. You know, I don't want us to start becoming a judge. Well, what if we do this? What if we do that?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, do we owe has anyone else put forward a concern formally? Paul?
My presumption is that Ms. Walkerman was speaking on behalf of the Democratic caucus, the way
Yeah,
Paul
I mean,
described it.
the person who sent us the charter, Christine Brown, who's another RTM member, Democratic RTM member, and a friend of mine, also voiced concerns in the email that she wrote me. So, but I think that, I mean, I can communicate it to her afterwards, but I think that, yeah, I think
Okay.
that we should,
So Karen Walkerman formally asked us, and Brenda and Tom Bremer formally asked us. So, you know, I'll put Jen Carpenter on there. I know Pam, do you know Pam is now formally working. She's resigned her RTM post and
yeah,
is formally working to backfill the chief of staff.
staff.
Leave. So I'll inform, just so I get this right. Am I just writing to those people, or does Brenda actually have an email? I don't know the protocol.
Brenda does have an email. Yep.
Okay, is it buried in here? Is it like a known thing? I'm sure someone else reads it, but
You can get it on the website.
Yeah.
okay. If
But
anyone can just toss it to me, I'll put her, Tom Bremer, Jen Carpenter, Pam Iacono, and Karen Walkerman, and you all on that note.
Yeah, I don't think I would put Karen on that note with the town officials, just because it's like a separate issue. Send me, yeah, make sure you copy me on that, and I'm gonna forward that email to her.
Well, you'll all be copied on it. I don't want to, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really important.
I'll be responsible for contacting Karen, and I'll also forward it to Christine Brown, who brought the charter to my attention.
Yeah, my
right.
only thought was inform them at the same time, but in separate emails. You
Yeah.
don't want to, you want to CC the others on Brenda's email.
Right.
And can this wait till Friday, or does it have to be done tomorrow?
I think, why couldn't it wait till Friday?
I could wait till Friday.
Okay. I'm in New York all tomorrow and really need to I want to make sure I do this right and sitting in front of my computer. So I'll do it on Friday. You'll see the note. If I have any questions or reservations, I'll flag in advance, but you'll all see it as it goes out.
So just to make it formal, I'm going to make a motion to forgo coverage of the Phil Pyle trial on the basis that the current charter for FairTV does not support coverage of the trial.
A second it.
Need to include the sentencing in that too, in that motion?
We already agreed
Right,
to
I'm
the
sorry.
sentencing.
Right.
Yeah. No, totally fine.
Short memory.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously, and then Jesus. And on the tails of that, I'm also going to make a motion then to open a reevaluation of the FairTV charter to potentially broaden the scope of its ability to cover nonpartisan activities of interest to the residents of the town of Fairfield.
I second that. I don't even know if we need to.
I don't know. Do we need to vote on that to like
No, we can just
evaluate the charter?
I think you can have a
Do that.
discussion before you need to move. You don't move anything until you've actually done something, I think.
Okay.
So why don't at the next meeting, we agree on the language. We hopefully come into alignment on the language that we want to amend. And
Yeah.
we'll propose it, even if it's off base. And I don't
Under new business.
knowing how long it takes. I think that would be important to do at the next meeting and would wait. I don't know. I'd like to decide tonight if we're going to have are we going to postpone the next meeting on account of Lee? And Lee, I say that with all due respect, because we really obviously want your engagement in here. And these are really big matters. And normally we would just say, you miss it, hopefully catch the next one. But I just want to make sure if we're talking about charters and Phil Pyle trial coverages, that we're not operating in any kind of vacuum.
Well, I'd like to be part of those discussions, but I understand if you want to move forward. It is what it is.
Well, I just think in the interest of, I'm only going to respectfully disagree that in the interest of it taking presumably a minimum of 4 months, and almost positive that whatever language that we've even spoken about tonight, that we try to vote on at the next meeting will probably not be the last of it. It will be very simple and clear and just give us a larger mandate. So I'll probably just seek to continue. We'll just stay on schedule given the timing. The only way I would change that meeting is if somehow if the Phil Pyle trial resurfaces and becomes really kind of like crazy, then we'll have to schedule another meeting, because that I don't want to. I want, the four of us to be voting on. So is that fair, Lee?
I sort of lost you. So,
Yeah.
if the trial rears its head in some way, you would.
We'll figure out how to incorporate you, whether that means postponing or adding a meeting. But we should just stay, as far as the charter goes, on schedule, because of the time it takes and the fact that this will probably not be a one shot, like, here's our language, boom, 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 all done, wipe your hands, approved or disapproved. I'm afraid it will be a lot of, back and forth. So I think we'll keep this just our meeting, our regularly scheduled meeting as of now for next month.
Well, I certainly would defer to I'm the new kid in the block, so I defer to you.
Yeah, well, you just see we're trying to be really trying to make an effort to welcome you in as obviously a independent and of course an equal voice, which you are. I'm really adamant that the town recognize that we need one more person, because one thing that's unclear to me is what happens if we take a vote on something and it's 2-2. I guess that means it doesn't pass, or do we say, Luke, flip a coin?
Yeah,
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Doesn't pass.
Tiebreaker.
Right. So
Also, just something to think about, like, as we're talking about revising the charter language, it might be something that's worth talking about in executive session, because I don't really know that Luke needs to be part of that discussion. I don't mean any disrespect, Luke, but
That's fine.
as we hammer out this language, I don't really think that Luke can have an input, and he's not going to be able to have an opinion
Yeah.
about it or help write it, and he's really going to be on the receiving end of whatever gets decided. And I don't mean any disrespect when I'm saying that, Luke. I hope you know
No,
that.
of course. Yeah, I totally get it.
which means we're saying you can get some of your night back in a month from now.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm trying to give you some time back. I mean, and also, Lee, just so you know, this is incredibly unusual. We are usually not an hour and 40 minutes. I mean, we try to come in under an hour on most.
That's what they said to me last week, last month, Lee.
That was different.
Yeah. Well, you've never been to a faculty meeting, I can tell that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the irony is we just, Luke, we did say that, and it was, the difference is that some of the previous meetings were not dominated by I would like to think, a universal discussion. It became a lecture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Much to our consummate chagrin. Anyway, okay, so in summary here, I'm going to draft an email for Brenda, Tom, Jen, and Pam, and you all, that says, in accordance with our interpretation of the FairTV charter, we cannot cover the Phil Pyle trial or any aspect of it. That's it.
Just remind me who Pam is.
Pam Iacono was an RTM member and has, yeah, she's left that position and now she's working with Brenda.
Right.
I believe. Okay.
Yep.
She's just been very helpful, candidly, with helping me to understand how to set an agenda and mistakes that have just cropped up because none of us knew really a lot about the formalities of this, which can be a little stifling. So that note will go out by end of day Friday, if not earlier. Lee, I'm going to get you added to the commissioner alias, the commission alias email.
Okay.
We're not going to include Karen in that first email because we're responding to the people, first and foremost, to our town officials who put the request in front of us, and just go from there. Right?
And David, also, earlier you were talking about wanting a new person to be considered for our fifth
Yes.
commissioner. So
Yes.
that's an email that needs to go out to, I don't even know who needs to see that. Jen Carpenter, maybe?
It is Jen, and I just feel that that's why we took a vote on it, because, you know, there's, as I see it, there's things that are done that don't make sense to me, such as the Board of Selectmen approving somebody who's not there to begin with. That sounds kind of wacky. The Board of Selectmen had to vote on Luke's appointment even after we had a signed contract with him. I made no sense to me. And, you know, so sometimes there's just a way that these things are seemingly like removed from maybe our purview after the fact. And I just want to say that we as a commission, you know, want to actively encourage any Republican, any person who's interested to take the Republican seat to do so without delay.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's relying on us to reach out to those interested, as long as they are Republican, to fulfill that role. So please ask anybody you know who you think would be interested.
Okay.
So can I make a motion to adjourn, or do we need anything else to cover?
Nope.
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Luke, we'll the next one, we'll just say we'll be under 1 hour and 45 minutes.
That's what they say
That's
now.
all I want from. Yeah, you can hold me to that because it's long, but thank you, Lee, really appreciate your involvement, and
Sure.
Luke, obviously, you know, I encourage you to get, I'm glad we have alignment with Paxton and a process for finding out more on this, you know, how we can revamp the search function and everything else that you're involved in.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sorry, last thing, Will, you took notes?
Yes, I'm sending the minutes to the commission as soon as we hang up here, so that they can be sent along with the recording to whoever is supposed to get them.
Town
I guess
clerk.
I guess the town clerk, right?
And do we need to
Is
take
that-
action on whatever you send?
No, I'm just sending it just so you have it for your records. If there's if you believe that I've missed something, or
Yeah.
you know, something needs clarification, I'd ask that you let me know, and I'll make the edits. But this should reflect.
Could
what we
I
went
just
through.
ask that in light of this note going out on Friday, does it behoove us not to send, you know, just to take a beat until that note goes out, to formally submit the minutes of this meeting?
I believe we owe them within 5 days of the meeting, so that gives
Okay.
us till Monday. So I'll put that in the note that, you know, if no edits needed, send along to the town clerk.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if any of you get requests, probably you most likely, Paula, like,
Yeah.
you know, where are the minutes to the meeting? And I think we just have to be clear that we'll get them out within our allotted time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, everyone.
Thank you all, Lee. Have a wonderful vacation. We won't probably see you before then.
Thank you.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Productive meeting. Well done.